Warning: what I'm about to tell you could change everything you thought you knew about why your body feels weaker every morning. There's one thing that happens while you sleep, one simple thing you're probably forgetting that's causing you to lose the very strength you need to stay independent. Dorothy, a 68-year-old retired librarian from Vermont, sat in my office last month with tears in her eyes and said, "Dr. Harrison, I used to carry my grandchildren. Now I can barely carry the groceries." Dorothy's story broke my heart because I've heard it hundreds of times. She wasn't sick, she wasn't injured, she was simply losing something precious every single night, and she had no idea it was happening. Dorothy lived alone after her husband passed 3 years ago. She had 2 daughters who visited on weekends and 4 grandchildren who called her Nana. She used to tend a garden behind her house, growing tomatoes and cucumbers every summer, but last spring she couldn't even turn the soil. Her arms felt like they belonged to someone else, someone much older. She told me, "Doctor, I'm not who I was. I can feel myself disappearing." What Dorothy didn't know, what most people her age don't know, is that every single night while you're sleeping, your body is making a choice. It's like a cleaning crew that comes into an old building. They have to decide what to keep and what to throw away. And if you don't give them the right instructions, they start tearing down the good walls along with the bad. Your muscles, the very things that let you walk, lift, hug your grandchildren, climb stairs, they're being broken down while you dream. Not because you're old, not because it's inevitable, but because your body isn't getting what it needs at the exact moment it needs it most. Robert, a 62-year-old mechanic from Ohio, came to me after his son noticed something troubling. "Dad," his son said, "you used to lift engine blocks. Now you're asking me to open jars." Robert sat across from me, a proud man who had worked with his hands his entire life, and I could see the shame on his face. He told me, trembling slightly, "Dr. Harrison, I feel like I'm rusting from the inside, like an old car that nobody's taking care of anymore." And Robert wasn't wrong. That's exactly what was happening. Think of your muscles like a savings account at a bank. Every day you're either making deposits or withdrawals. But here's what nobody tells you. While you sleep, your body makes the biggest withdrawal of the day. It's like the bank opens a back door at night, and someone comes in and takes money out of your account. The only way to stop it is to leave a deposit in a special lockbox before you go to bed. If that lockbox is empty, the withdrawal happens anyway. Night after night after night. Margaret, 71 years old, a former elementary school teacher from Minnesota, understood this perfectly when I explained it to her. She said, with a sad laugh, "So you're telling me I've been robbed every night for years, and didn't even know it?" That's exactly what I was telling her, and it's what I'm telling you right now. But here's what I discovered, and this is what changed everything for patients like Dorothy, Robert, and Margaret. There's something you can do about it. Something so simple that when I tell you, you might not believe it could make such a difference. In just 21 days, you could feel the change. In less than a month, you could notice the difference in how you walk, how you move, how you lift, how you live. Let me explain what's really happening inside your body, because once you understand this, everything will make sense. When you were younger, your body was like a construction site that never stopped building. Workers everywhere, putting up new walls, reinforcing old ones, making everything stronger. But somewhere around your 40s, the construction crew started shrinking. By 50, you've lost half the workers. By 60, you're lucky if there's anyone left on the site at all. Now imagine those few remaining workers show up every night while you're sleeping. They look around and say, "Okay, what do we have to work with?" If you've given them materials, they can build. But if the supply closet is empty, they don't just go home. They start taking apart what's already there. They strip the walls for material. They break down the framework. They salvage what they can. That's what your body does to your muscles when you haven't given it what it needs before bed. Helen, a 65-year-old nurse who had spent her career taking care of others, came to me because she could no longer take care of herself. She said with frustration in her voice, "I've spent my whole life helping people stand up. Now I can barely get myself out of a chair." Helen knew the human body better than most of my patients, but even she didn't understand why this was happening to her. I asked Helen what she ate before bed. She told me she usually had a small salad or nothing at all. She'd read somewhere that eating before bed was bad for you, that your body stored everything as fat while you slept, that you should stop eating by 6 or 7 in the evening. And here's the tragedy. That advice, which might be fine for a 30-year-old, was destroying her muscles one night at a time. You see, it's like this. Imagine your muscles are a garden. During the day, the sun beats down and the wind blows and the plants use up water and nutrients just to survive. At night, you'd think the garden rests, but actually that's when the real growing happens. The roots reach deeper, the stems get stronger, but only if the soil has what it needs. If you leave the garden without water overnight, morning comes and everything's a little more wilted, a little weaker, a little closer to dying. What Robert's son noticed, what Dorothy felt every morning, what Helen couldn't explain, it all came down to one thing. Their bodies were starving for building materials at the exact hour when construction should have been happening. Now, I've been a doctor for over 30 years. I've watched countless patients struggle with this problem. They exercised, they took vitamins, they did everything right during the day, but they ignored the most critical window of all, the 8 hours when they were asleep. Thomas, a 60-year-old retired firefighter from Nevada, was the one who finally made me see the pattern clearly. Thomas was a big man, used to being strong. He'd carried people out of burning buildings, he'd broken down doors with his shoulder, but when he came to my office, he was a shadow of that man. His arms hung loose at his sides, his legs shook when he stood too long. He looked at me with fear in his eyes and said, "Doctor, I don't recognize myself in the mirror anymore. Where did I go?" I asked Thomas about his daily routine. He ate well during the day, plenty of protein at breakfast, good meals at lunch and dinner, but by bedtime he hadn't eaten anything in 4 or 5 hours. His body was going into the night shift completely empty-handed. Think of it like this. You're the owner of a factory that runs 24 hours a day. The day shift has plenty of supplies. Workers are building, repairing, creating, but then the night shift comes in and the supply room is empty. Do they go home? No. They have to keep the factory running, so they start cannibalizing. They take parts from one machine to keep another running. They strip wires from the walls. They break down anything that isn't absolutely essential just to keep the core functions going. That's what Thomas's body was doing every night, breaking itself down to keep itself alive. Now, what I'm about to tell you is so simple that when I first learned about it, I wondered why nobody had told me before, why this wasn't common knowledge, why doctors weren't shouting it from the rooftops. A group of researchers studied people over 50 who were losing muscle mass. They divided them into groups. One group ate normally, with their last meal being dinner. The other group ate one specific thing before bed, just one thing. After 21 days, the difference was remarkable. The group that ate before bed not only stopped losing muscle, but actually started building it back. What they ate, what I'm about to share with you, works like a night deposit at the bank. It's like leaving the cleaning crew with explicit instructions and all the materials they need. Instead of tearing things down, they spend the night building things up. Dorothy came back to see me after 3 weeks of following this advice. She walked into my office differently, straighter, more confident. She said, smiling for the first time since I'd met her, "Dr. Harrison, I planted my tomatoes yesterday. I turned the soil myself. My granddaughter helped, but I did most of the work, and I sat on the porch afterward feeling like myself again." That's the power of what I'm about to tell you. Robert's son called me a month after his father started. He said, "Dad's back in the garage. He's fixing things again. He opened a jar yesterday like it was nothing, and then laughed about it for 10 minutes. So what is this one thing? What's the bedtime food that stops your muscles from disappearing while you sleep? It's cottage cheese. Yes, cottage cheese. That simple, humble food that's been sitting in grocery stores for decades. Before you think it can't be that easy, let me explain why this works so well, and why a Japanese doctor was the one who finally connected all the pieces. Dr. Hiroshi Tanaka spent years studying why some older adults maintained their strength while others wasted away. He looked at diet, exercise, sleep, genetics, and what he found was surprising. The people who maintained their muscle mass the longest weren't eating more protein overall. They were eating it at a specific time, right before bed. But Dr. Tanaka's research went even deeper than that. He wanted to understand exactly what was happening inside the body during those critical overnight hours. So he tracked amino acid levels in his patients throughout the night. He measured muscle protein synthesis while they slept, and what he discovered changed the way we think about nutrition and aging. He found that during the first 2 hours of sleep, the body enters what he called a repair window. This is when growth hormone levels peak, when cells regenerate most rapidly, when your muscles are most ready to receive building materials. But here's the problem. If you ate dinner at 6 and went to bed at 10, by midnight that repair window opens and there's nothing there. The building materials have already been used up. The supply trucks have come and gone. Dr. Tanaka compared it to a concert hall. Imagine the orchestra is ready to perform. The musicians are in their seats. The conductor raises the baton. But when they look at their music stands, there's no sheet music. They can't play. They sit there all night long, instruments ready, unable to make any music at all. That's what happens to your muscles when the repair window opens and there's no protein available. But not just any protein matters enormously. Dr. Tanaka tested different types of proteins consumed before bed and measured their effects on muscle preservation. Fast-digesting proteins like chicken or fish were processed too quickly. They were used up before that crucial repair window even opened. But slow-digesting proteins, the kind found in cottage cheese, kept releasing amino acids steadily throughout the entire night, like a slow drip of water keeping a plant alive through a drought. Imagine you're filling a car with gas before a long trip. Some fuels burn fast and hot. Great for a quick sprint, but you'll run out before you reach your destination. Other fuels burn slowly and steadily. They get you through the whole journey without stopping. Most proteins you eat are like that fast-burning fuel. Your body uses them up quickly. By the middle of the night there's nothing left. But cottage cheese is different. It contains a type of slow-burning fuel that your body releases gradually throughout the night. It's like having a small steady supply drip-fed to those workers while you sleep. For 6 to 8 hours your body has what it needs. No tearing down the walls, no stripping the wires, just building, repairing, restoring. Helen, the retired nurse, was skeptical at first. She told me, "Doctor, I've been in medicine my whole career. If this worked, I would have known about it." But she tried it anyway. Just 1 cup of cottage cheese before bed. 21 days later, she sat in my office and said, with tears rolling down her cheeks, "I got out of bed this morning without holding on to anything. I haven't done that in 2 years. Now let me tell you exactly how to make this work, because the details matter." First, the timing. You want to eat your cottage cheese 30 to 60 minutes before you go to sleep, not right as you're getting into bed, and not 3 hours before. Think of it like setting an alarm clock. You need to give your body just enough time to start processing before you drift off. Second, the amount. You don't need much. About 1 cup is perfect. That's like filling a measuring cup you'd use for baking. Some people find that half a cup works well for them, especially at first, but 1 cup is the target. Third, and this is important, make sure it's plain cottage cheese, not the kind with fruit mixed in which is full of sugar, not low-fat versions which often remove the very things that make this work. Just simple, plain cottage cheese. You can add your own berries if you want flavor, but keep it simple. Thomas, the firefighter, made a mistake at first. He bought flavored cottage cheese because he thought plain would taste bad. After a week with no results, he called me confused. When I asked what kind he was eating, we figured out the problem. He switched to plain the next day. Within 2 weeks, he felt the difference. Here's another way to think about it. Imagine your muscles are like a sponge. During the day, that sponge gets squeezed and wrung out through all your activities. By night, it's dry and brittle. If you just leave it like that, it stays dry. It cracks, it falls apart a little more each time. But if you soak that sponge before you go to bed, it stays plump and flexible through the night. It's ready to be used again in the morning. Cottage cheese soaks your muscles overnight. Now I know some of you are thinking, "But Dr. Harrison, I don't like cottage cheese," or "I've never eaten cottage cheese in my life." That's okay. I'm going to tell you how to make it work even if you think you don't like it. Margaret, the former teacher, hated cottage cheese when she started. She told me, "Doctor, I tried it in the 70s and it tasted like wet sand." But she was desperate to stop losing strength. So she experimented. She mixed it with a little cinnamon. She added a few walnuts. She found that when it was slightly chilled and mixed with a handful of blueberries, she actually enjoyed it. Now she looks forward to her bedtime snack. The key is making it a ritual, something you do every night without thinking, like brushing your teeth. You don't debate whether to brush your teeth before bed, you just do it. Make cottage cheese the same way. Put it next to your toothbrush if you have to. After 21 days, it becomes automatic. Robert found his own system. He keeps single-serving containers in his refrigerator. Every night after dinner, he takes one out and puts it on the kitchen counter. When he comes back to the kitchen before bed, it's sitting there waiting for him. He eats it standing at the counter, watching the trees in his backyard. He told me it's become his favorite time of day. I want to share another story with you, because I think it captures something important. Walter, a 57-year-old accountant from Pennsylvania, came to see me not because he felt weak yet, but because he watched his father waste away in a nursing home. He told me with fear in his voice, "Dr. Harrison, my father was a strong man his whole life, built furniture with his hands, worked in construction until he was 65, but those last 5 years he couldn't even feed himself. I watched him disappear. I don't want that to be my story. Walter wasn't sick, he wasn't even struggling yet, but he was smart enough to know that prevention is easier than recovery. He asked me what he could do now, before the weakness started, to protect himself. When I told him about cottage cheese, he didn't hesitate. He started that very night. 6 months later, he came back for a checkup and said something that stayed with me. "Doctor, I don't know if it's working because I feel the same as I did before, but I realized that's exactly the point, isn't it? Feeling the same means I'm not declining, and that's everything." Walter understood something profound. This isn't just about reversing damage, it's about preventing it in the first place. For every Dorothy who needs to rebuild, there's a Walter who can protect what he still has. Now you might be wondering why cottage cheese specifically? Why not regular milk? Why not yogurt? Why not just take a supplement? Think of it this way. Regular milk is like water running through your hands. It flows through your system quickly and doesn't stick around long enough to help. Yogurt is better, but it's still processed too fast. It's like a quick handshake instead of a long conversation. But cottage cheese, because of how it's made, is like a slow, steady friendship that develops over hours. Your body has time to use every bit of it. Here's another way to understand it. Think of your body like a wood-burning stove on a cold winter night. If you throw in newspaper and kindling, it burns bright and hot but goes out quickly. You wake up in a cold house, but if you put in a big, dense log before bed, it smolders all night long. The house stays warm until morning. Cottage cheese is that dense log. It keeps the fire burning steady while you sleep. Supplements can help, but they're like getting a text message instead of a real conversation. Something is communicated, but so much is lost. Whole foods carry things that scientists haven't even fully identified yet, things that work together in ways we're still discovering. Cottage cheese brings all of those benefits in a simple, affordable package. Dorothy now buys cottage cheese in bulk. She keeps several containers in her refrigerator at all times. She told me, laughing, "My daughters thought I was crazy at first. Now they're all eating it too." And that's something I should mention. This isn't just for people over 50, it works for anyone who wants to maintain their strength. But it's especially important as we get older, because our bodies become less efficient at this overnight repair work. We need to give them more help, not less. Helen started telling her former colleagues about this. Nurses she had worked with for decades. She said with pride in her voice, "I feel like I'm still helping people, Dr. Harrison. Even in retirement, I'm still teaching people how to take care of themselves." That's exactly what I hope you'll do too. If you know someone who is struggling with weakness, who feels like their body is betraying them, who wakes up each morning feeling a little less than they were the day before, share this with them. Sometimes all we need is for someone to tell us there's a solution, that we're not helpless, that something as simple as a cup of cottage cheese before bed can change the trajectory of our lives. Thomas called me last week. It's been 3 months since he started. He said, "Dr. Harrison, my wife asked me to move the couch yesterday. I picked up my end like it was nothing. I almost cried right there in the living room. I'm back. I'm finally back." And then he told me something else that I want to share with you. He said, "You know what the hardest part was? Believing it could be this simple. I spent years thinking I needed expensive trainers, fancy supplements, some kind of complicated program. I tried all of that, and nothing worked. Then you told me to eat cottage cheese before bed, and I almost laughed. It seemed too easy. But easy doesn't mean it doesn't work. Sometimes the best answers are the simplest ones." Thomas was right. We've been conditioned to believe that solutions to big problems must be complicated, expensive, difficult, but sometimes they're not. Sometimes they're sitting right there in the dairy aisle, waiting for us to notice them. Think about what you want to be able to do in 6 months, a year, 5 years. Do you want to play with your grandchildren on the floor and get back up without help? Do you want to carry your own suitcase when you travel? Do you want a garden, to walk without fear of falling, to feel like yourself again? All of that is possible, not through expensive treatments, or complicated programs, or giving up foods you love, just one simple addition to your evening routine, 1 cup of cottage cheese, 30 minutes before bed, every single night. It's like planting a seed before winter. You can't see what's happening underground, but come spring, something beautiful breaks through the surface. Your body is that garden. The cottage cheese is that seed. The overnight hours are when the roots grow deep. Robert taught me something I'll never forget. He said, "Doctor, all my life I fixed things, cars, trucks, machines, but I never thought about maintaining myself the same way. You wouldn't let a car sit overnight without checking the oil. Why would you let your body sit overnight without giving it what it needs?" That's wisdom from a man who spent his life understanding how things work. And he's absolutely right. Margaret's grandchildren visit her more often now. They play board games at her kitchen table, and she doesn't get tired after an hour anymore. She can sit with them for whole afternoons. She told me, with tears of joy, My grandson said I seem younger. Can you believe that? My 12-year-old grandson thinks I'm getting younger. She's not getting younger, but she stopped getting older so fast. She stopped the nightly robbery. She started making deposits in that savings account instead of withdrawals. Helen went back to volunteering at the hospital last month. She helps in the gift shop now, carrying supplies, restocking shelves, being on her feet for hours at a time. The same woman who couldn't get out of a chair without help 6 months ago. She credits one thing: that simple cup of cottage cheese before bed. I want you to try something. Tonight, before you go to sleep, write down how you feel when you wake up each morning. Rate your energy on a scale of 1 to 10. Rate how your body feels. Do this for 3 days without changing anything. Then start eating 1 cup of plain cottage cheese 30 minutes before bed. After 21 days, look back at those first numbers. I believe you'll be amazed at the difference. Dorothy did this exercise. Her first 3 mornings, she rated her energy at a 3. Her body felt like a 5 at best. 21 days later, her energy was a 7. Her body felt like an 8. She said with wonder in her voice, "I didn't believe it would work. I thought I was too far gone. But doctor, I was wrong. Thank God I was wrong. You're not too far gone. It's not too late. Your body is still capable of building, of repairing, of restoring. You just have to give the right materials at the right time." Think of tonight as the beginning of something new. The first night where you're not being robbed while you sleep. The first night where the construction crew shows up to a full supply closet and starts building instead of tearing down. The first night of 21 nights that could change everything. And when you wake up in the morning, and then the morning after that, and the morning after that, you'll start to feel it. That little bit more strength, that little bit more stability, that little bit more you coming back. I think of Dorothy often. The woman who came to me unable to carry groceries, unable to plant her garden, unable to feel like herself. And I think of her now, covered in dirt from her tomato plants, grandchildren running around her backyard, carrying bags into her house without thinking twice. She grabbed my hand at her last visit and said, "Dr. Harrison, you gave me back the life I thought was gone. How can I ever thank you?" And I told her what I'll tell you. Don't thank me. Just pass it on. Tell someone else. Help someone else. That's all the thanks I need. So tonight, before you go to bed, give yourself this gift. 1 cup of plain cottage cheese. It takes 2 minutes. It costs almost nothing. And it could give you back years of strength that you thought were lost forever. If you know someone who needs to hear this, share it with them. Because sometimes the smallest changes make the biggest differences, and sometimes the simplest solutions are hiding right in front of us, waiting for someone to point them out. Your body is waiting. Your muscles are waiting. Your future self, the one who's still strong and independent and capable, is waiting for you to take this one small step. Dorothy did it. Robert did it. Margaret, Helen, Thomas, and Walter did it too. Now it's your turn.